Emerging Digital Academy, which is what EDA stands for, is Emerging Digital Academy. And I will talk more about what that looks like in a little bit, but I am the head of student life and community engagement there. So Mandy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. I am Mandy Bajan. I am the HR manager at CoreLink Administrative Solutions. CoreLink is going through a journey of closure, and through that process, we have spent a lot of time and effort helping out our employees as they're looking to go out into the market and find their next great thing. And excited to be in partnership with the EDA and Liz and how we can share some of these things that we've been talking about with our employees with a broader network of people. So it's really been a great series of sessions that I'm really happy to be a part of.
The feeling is mutual. It's been great. And we have one more next Wednesday. I'll do a little plug now, and then I'll do one at the end as well. So next Wednesday, same time, same place, we will be talking about interview tips and tricks. So kind of that next, what happens next. So that's what we'll be touching on next week. So the plan for today, I'll give a little blurb about what EDA is. It's something that's new in Fargo-Moorhead, and we're really excited about it. So I'll share what that is. We'll talk about benefits, salary negotiating, and then we'll have the panel. So just like I had shared earlier, pretty straightforward of the things that we'll go through. And Mandy's going to lead us through some benefits and salary negotiations that I'm excited to learn more about. So I want to share a little bit about EDA. So what EDA is, it stands for Emerging Digital Academy. Short and sweet of it is a 20-week coding boot camp to learn the skills to be a full stack developer. And so it's right here in Fargo-Moorhead. Really what the rest of the story is that software jobs are in demand, and we don't have all of the professionals, enough professionals to fill those positions. And so within EDA, what we do is that we are the first and only one in North Dakota, nonprofit career training school. So we are within Emerging Prairie, is who we affiliate with. And we help these professionals. We help people who are wanting to go into coding and doing that development to have that structured and accelerated pace that really emulates the first 6 months of working at a software company. And so not only do you learn those tech skills, but you also learn those non-tech skills. And that's where my role comes in, is we do that career development. We have mentorship programs. We bring in guest speakers and all of that as community members and employers to then launch you into that, whatever that next career is within that 20 weeks timeframe. So that is the quick and dirty of it. You can head over to emergingacademy.org or send me an email, and I'd be willing and more than happy to talk with folks about what that looks like. Our next cohort begins at the end of this month, because we're now in July. At the end of this month, July 27th, with a deadline of July 20th. So it's been great. The students are, the current cohort that we have, they are in their, starting their 13th week, or I guess are in the middle of their 13th week. And the things they've learned has been blown me away. So that's a little bit about EDA. On our website, if you jump over there, we do have info sessions. The next one, I believe, is next Tuesday, is when we have those info sessions, 20 minutes to learn a little bit more about what that is, get some questions answered. So you can also jump over to our website to learn a little bit more on how to upgrade your career in 20 weeks. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mandy. It is all you.
All right, I apologize for any dog barking or child craziness you might hear in the background. Lunch is always a busy time at my house, but it's real life. We're all in here, folks. So hopefully they don't get too crazy. Like Liz said, I just wanted to kick off talking about benefits and salary negotiations. You know, a lot of times when you're in the market for a position, it can be overwhelming thinking about it all, thinking about what should my salary be? You know, what does this position pay? What have I been paid in the past? What do I need to make? And what is an HSA even anyways? You know, just talking about benefits, and it's confusing. I mean, you know, especially maybe you work for one company for a long time, or maybe you're fresh out of school and you've always been on your parents' benefits. And so the biggest message of today is realizing, I think, what an important part benefits are of your total package you're going to receive from your future employer. So what I'd like everyone to do is go over to the chat and type in at least one benefit that's really important to you when you think about your next employer and things you're looking for. And I'll look over there and see what folks are putting in. We're seeing medical insurance, PTO, a couple just insurances, Danielle saying some flexibility and PTO. Or that flex schedules or remote work being important to people. More insurance and medical. Some of the big dog benefits out there. In 401k, thanks for that, Wade. That one's super important to me as well. Some flex, health, dental, vision. It's interesting as we look and define benefits. Traditionally companies really just thought about insurance and they didn't really think about flex schedule, flexibility, or being remote as a benefit. I think that those are very important things to look for and have a conversation with when it comes to benefits. Is knowing what is most important to you. And oftentimes there might be one that you really don't think about. What I encourage people to do is you're going out and thinking about what benefits that you want in your next job is really make a list. Write down, think about it. For me, I have 4 kids and we like to go to the dentist 4 times a year. So a dental plan is really important to me. It might not be for everyone else. And really kind of making sure you talk about that with yourself and with your family as well. Tanya put continuing education. That's something too. If you're passionate about your growth and development, thinking about continuing education is an important thing to make note of. I'll talk a little bit later about when do you ask, how do you have these conversations about benefits? I think you guys put out a very good list and some of the things that we commonly see when we talk to folks about benefits. So thank you for that. Liz is my Vanna. There we go. So in looking at future benefits, what is it that you should look at? What should you be focused on? We talk about really focusing on core benefits. Don't be distracted by atypical benefits. Yep, it's super awesome to have pet insurance. That might be something that really appeals to you. However, if they have pet insurance and not a dental plan, or maybe the health insurance rates aren't the greatest, I think I kind of line it up there to ping pong tables and things like that companies have. It's, you have these like the golly gee wow stuff out there, but what is there for the core benefits that the company has, and make sure that the benefits that are most important to you are aligned with what it is that you're looking for. And then you can have those atypical benefits more so as the frosting. So make sure that you're really looking at those core benefits that are important to you. Another thing to be thinking about when you're making a job change is effective dates of benefit plans. And so, some companies it's effective the first of the month following your hire date. Some of them it's the first of the month following 30 days. So you might end up in a situation where you're going to have a month without coverage. So maybe you have to look at going on COBRA from your prior employer or taking out some individual coverage. And so that is something that's really important to look at. I know I've gotten questions on folks of, is that something that an employer can change for me? Can I negotiate my benefit start date? Not really. You can negotiate your hire date to align better. If it's first of the month following 30 days, you can look at what the 30 days is and see when your benefits would start, and maybe you can be flexible on your hire date, and maybe they would be willing to be flexible on your hire date as well. There's a lot of rules and audits and things like that, IRS legislation that around benefits. And so it's really not something that employers can make exceptions for one employee. Health plans, it's so interesting and all over the board what you see with health plans. For a while there are tons of there were companies that would have, I just talked to someone the other day, I think they had 12, something ridiculous. They're a very small company, had 12 health insurance benefit choices. Most companies don't have that. 1, maybe 2 you're seeing at companies. So if you're coming off of one where you have choices, not all companies have that. Some might only have one plan, and that is the plan that you need to take. I know a lot of folks said health insurance is really important to them, and this is where, be able to do that research and understand, what are the deductibles? Is it a high deductible plan? The networks, that's another thing too. Talking with that employer that had 12 benefit plans, one of their plans, you could only go to Essentia. And to know, hey, if I'm a Sanford person, that isn't really going to work for my family. And so being able to have that information and do research on it beforehand is really helpful. The other thing is an HSA contribution or health savings account. A lot of companies are switching over to high deductible health plans. And Some companies have a very rich HSA contribution. I know I'll use CoreLink as an example. We have a very rich HSA contribution where the company puts money into the account on behalf of the employee. I think when high deductible plans first started, you saw a lot more of a rich contribution. Now I've seen companies doing matches. They accrue it per pay period. It's not just a lump sum you get into that account that you can use for your medical expenses. So it's something to keep an eye on, especially if there is a high deductible health plan, to look for that HSA and see what that amount is to come with it. I know when I've done in benefit enrollments with some people, they just see what's the cheapest plan and they take it. And that might not be the best plan for you and your family. And so you really want to keep an eye out on that. 401k, this is a really important plan for me. I know a couple of people said it as well. 401k or any type of retirement savings account is really important to look at. Be mindful of different waiting periods for vesting or eligibility. Some employers do have plans in place where although you're contributing and you're getting the match dollars, you're not vested in them or have the ability to take them with you unless you're employed there for X amount of time. And so as you're looking at what the benefits are around retirement, that's good to look at. Some companies have employee stock ownership plans, pensions. There are a couple companies out there that still have them, not very many. But there are some different savings vehicles for retirement. And whether you're 21 or 51, retirement plans are important. And so it ends up being a large portion, in my opinion, of what could be your total rewards package from an employer. And so it's something to keep an eye at. The other thing is life insurance. I always say the two most important things you need are to insure are your paycheck and your life. You insure your paycheck through disability and your life through life insurance. And so there are companies out there that do have company paid life insurance that were to pay you or pay your beneficiary if something were to happen to you, or have the ability to buy it through work. A lot of times life insurance is more affordable if you can get it through work. And so it's a good thing to keep an eye out on. It's one of those things that people give me a hard time. They're like, Mandy, that's so morbid. I don't want to think about life insurance. But it's important. Working in benefits and insurance for so long, it being able to help people out and have that check come in if someone in their family were to pass away, it's a great benefit to have there. So something definitely to keep an eye out on. Another big thing too is research and doing the work. People ask, well, okay, Mandy, I know this is important to me, but how do I find out? How do I find out what this employer has and what it looks like there? Do your research on it. A lot of companies will have their entire benefits. I've seen companies have their entire benefits guide out on their website for everyone to see. So as you're doing your research and thinking about what companies you want to apply for and where you want to go, benefits, hopefully you'll find some information out there. The other thing, I know Liz and I in the past sessions have really talked about networking and the value of, if you know someone who works there, ask them. Maybe you're someone where, paid parental leave is really important to you. You plan on growing your family. Talk to someone who works there. How do they do this? What does it look like there? And I think that employees who work for organizations that have great benefit plans usually know it, and they'll be able to talk about it and will kind of sing the praises of their employer, or maybe they'll know if it's not either. And so I think it is really good. Yep, and Charles brought up Glassdoor too. Glassdoor is another good place to look as far as sourcing information on what's out there for benefits, for past employees or other information too that's out there. And it is amazing what you can find, what's out there. So now it's the big question of when is the right time to ask about benefits? I always say it kind of depends. I think the best person to talk to about benefits is if you're on the phone with an HR person. I think you're going to get better information than you would necessarily from the hiring manager themselves. So maybe it's kind of that first call with a recruiter, or you're talking with HR later on. They're kind of the best people to ask. There are some organizations where, especially bigger organizations, where they have one benefits guide or a smaller benefits newsletter that they share with prospective employees, and then you get a bigger one once you've gotten the offer. Because for a lot of companies, their benefits are considered almost like their competitive advantage, and so it isn't something that they want to share publicly. So you might get part of the information earlier in the process and part later on. But I always say definitely talk to the HR person about it. And be, sometimes they'll share a little bit at a time, and that's okay. If it's your very first phone screen and you're like, I need to know your health insurance rates, I need to know this, this, and this, it might come across a little bit demanding. So I would say just be mindful of how you ask for it. I know one thing that I like to say, especially when they're talking about compensation, they'll ask you, where do you need to be with salary for your next position? What I always like to say, they call it Mandy's phrase, is, total rewards is very important to me and my family. And so, before I can determine what a base salary is, I'd like to see your entire total rewards package. And so it's good to be able to throw that out there, because then if they're interested in you too, they will start sharing some more of that information with you around benefits. But definitely, talk to the recruiters early in the process. And then once you start, second interviewing, maybe offers going out, you can for sure be asking for that information. All right. So when coming to negotiating, you've done your research, you know what benefits are important to you, you know kind of what their plans look like. Now's that time really to think about, how do I negotiate this? People are always scared. I know I get tons of questions around, Mandy, they asked me what's my salary expectations? I don't even know. How do I share that number? My biggest thing is to know your number. Think about where you need to be for you and your family. Where are you at in your career? Is the position you're looking at a continual progression of skills and knowledge that you've already been working and developing on? Or are you going to something new that maybe your skills don't directly translate, where you maybe have to go down a little bit from where you were before because your knowledge base isn't the same in that area as it is in your current area. So it is some soul searching. It's some conversations with your family to figure out kind of what is that number for you. And to know, if you find an amazing opportunity at a great company that just can't pay a certain number, where can you go to be able to take that opportunity? Yep, and to Charles said too, is knowing your value in the market. That's important. A lot of companies do pay for position rather than paying for the person. And so knowing in the market, if I'm a software developer and this is what is typically paid in the market, know what that is. And it's different in different regions and areas. And that's where, Glassdoor is a good resource, as well as other HR folks that I know it's networking. People don't exactly, hey, what are you getting paid? No one has that conversation. And so that's where Glassdoor is a good resource. Or if you have some friends in the HR community, they're always good to reach out to too, and get that information. So going back to kind of what I said before, be confident, but not aggressive. It's really important to know your worth and say where you're at. I know I've worked in positions before where someone has come in and said, provided their own salary survey information of this is what they think that they should be paid at based upon their research. And it was this whole huge long email of why they needed to get paid about $40,000 more than what we were looking to pay for the position. That can be a turnoff for people. And where it's a little bit more too aggressive, but be confident and know your worth. And the more research you do, the better I think that conversation goes. And then going back to if the salary is not competitive, gain leverage by explaining the importance of benefits. And thinking where are they at? And companies will do this too. If there's companies out there with really rich benefit plans, they might not go as aggressive on their salary levels because they know total compensation wise that they're competitive in the market. And so, maybe you don't take benefits. And so there's different things that are important to you. So kind of knowing when to leverage all that is important. One question that we do get a lot to is around prior salary. So the way this question should be asked is, what salary are you looking for in your next opportunity? Your prior salary, what are you making right now, isn't the question that should be getting asked. It's more so, what are you looking for in your next opportunity? Again, kind of going back to, I'll do Charles' question here. He says, is it true that, it popped away for a sec, that an offer is always negotiable and counter offers are expected? I wouldn't say always. There are some companies that they don't negotiate. They say this is what it is and this is what we'll pay for this position. You tend to see that more in companies where they don't struggle at all to get employees, and they have people knocking down their doors to work there. But quite often, people are expecting negotiation. I know we even had interns negotiating in my prior lives, coming in and wanting to negotiate PTO or negotiating what their salary is going to be. I think too, it depends on where you're at in the process. I recommend, negotiating and getting those things taken care of before you get the actual paper offer. So if you've already gone back and forth a little bit, by the time you get the paper offer, you guys might be there already. And maybe, I think we'll get some perspectives from, I know we have Lisa and Elise on the phone too. I'd be curious to hear their perspectives on this question later on. So I think that would be a good one to save for them. Another one is negotiate PTO, especially if you are someone who is coming from a long-term career and you have a lot of benefits. It's scary thinking about starting all over with PTO. Some companies do have flexibility in what they can give you, whether it's maybe a bank where they can give you some additional hours. Sometimes, most often they can't change how much you accrue, or they won't, because it's cumbersome administratively, so there are some different things that you can do around PTO. And my stance on this is I've never, given someone an offer and they ask for 40 hours of PTO and I say, nope, not giving you this offer anymore because you asked for PTO. That doesn't happen, and so the worst they'll say is no, nope, sorry, that's not something we can do. And then for you, it's just important to know, okay, is that a deal breaker for you or not in your negotiations? I know I've heard from a lot of people too, they're scared to negotiate. They're scared that if they get an offer and it's maybe 5,000 less than where they want to be, that if they say that, all of a sudden they're not going to have the offer anymore. And don't be afraid to do it. Just do it in a tactful way. And, the worst they can say is no. And you just need to be prepared of whether or not that's a deal breaker for you or not. And we always tease using Mandy's phrase. It's just, total rewards are very important to me. And I like to, look at the entire benefit package before I make that decision. I know I even have a spreadsheet. I love Excel. So I have a spreadsheet that compares, here's my current benefits, what I'm paying for, what the company is paying for versus what the new company has, because benefits are a huge part of your salary. I know I saw a stat somewhere that people spend more time researching what TV they're going to buy than they spend researching their benefit elections. And if you think about, a TV might cost you $800. Your benefits cost your company and you $25,000, $30,000 a year. I mean, a lot of money. So if we think about, how much time you invest in it, to think about it from that perspective, and we don't really think about benefits like a consumer. And so if you think about that as a part of your salary, it's huge. And so it's important to think about it. All right. So, Liz, you want to?
Yeah. So thank you, Mandy. I was like jotting down all my notes and questions for our panelists. So we have 3 panelists. One of them is Mandy. So thank you for joining us still for this part. And then we have Elise and Lisa. So if you two want to do a quick intro of yourselves, if we want to start with Lisa, if you want to share a little bit about yourself in whatever way you feel best.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I am the HR manager for Fargo Jet Center, and actually today is my 6-year anniversary. So, but before that, I was in comp and benefits at Noridian for 9 years, and that's where I worked. And so that's a little bit about me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being here. Elise, if you want to do an intro of yourself as well.
My name is Elise Damaris. I've been at CoreLink for about 3 years now as an HR business partner, but my former roles have been mostly benefits related. I'm also part of the old Blue Cross crew. Feel like everyone in Fargo has been there at one point in their life, working in comp and benefits. Also used to work at B&G back when they were a little itty bitty company. So it's cool to see where they have grown. But yeah, I have a passion for benefits, and I love talking benefits and helping people understand it a little better.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to learn from the both, or I guess all three of you. I'll start it out with a pretty general type of a question of what advice would you give to an individual who is searching during this time?
Lisa,
Start with the tough one. One thing I would say is just to be patient. I know it's hard during this time to worry about your job security, but don't settle for something that you're not going to be happy with.
Yeah, that's solid advice. I think that, a lot of companies are kind of evaluating, what do positions mean for them. And, I think taking a harder look as far as, is this something that they're going to have in their budget or not, and making sure that you make the right move is important to find the right thing. Lisa, your picture's frozen, so I'm sort of worried that we lost you. Maybe.
I think we may have. Okay. Well, hopefully she can join us again. So I want to jump back to the question that Charles had asked, and we had said, well, we'll check back in with our HR panelists. So really coming down to that, is salary negotiation expected? Is that something that's that's expected from HR professionals? Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I was just taking notes, and the only other things that I wanted to add is that you can negotiate COBRA. I have had people, if there's a 60-day waiting period, you can have ask for them to help pay for your COBRA through your other employer, and they will do that. And this goes all about negotiation power. Obviously, the higher salaried people positions, you have more room for negotiation. If it's entry level, there's definitely the position is only worth this much, and there's a lot less room for negotiation. But if you are a higher level, you have more room for negotiation. And relocation is another thing that is negotiable, and the amount of relocation definitely depends on the position. And then also, I have seen that there is more flexibility with self-funded plans than fully insured plans. So it's something that if you
Oh no. Hopefully Lisa comes back on. I know she's traveling.
We can jump to another question, unless there's other thoughts from Elise or Mandy regarding that one.
I think back to the original question on, if we expect salary and the process to be negotiable. I guess I do when you're looking at kind of more those mid-level to higher level roles. Would you agree, Mandy?
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of times you do, especially your mid and high level roles. But it's like, what is a mid or high level role? I think, anytime, especially I would say, over 80,000, a higher level role, there's always a negotiating. Even I think in a $60,000 position, there's negotiating. But I've interviewed at companies that don't negotiate. That this is what it is, and this is, but they're huge. They tend to be larger companies, more so.
Still worth asking the question, though. Worst thing they can say is no.
Lisa
I'm
is
so
back.
sorry. I'm traveling, and so we hit a low spot. So I apologize.
Lisa, you were talking about flexibility with fully insured and self-funded plans, or versus self-funded plans, is where you cut out.
Yeah, and so you can, you can do more with a self-funded plan. As far as there is more flexibility, that is, and it gets trickier. So it's definitely easier to just ask for the Cobra versus starting earlier. But sometimes there is flexibility in that. And then I also agree with Mandy on, you definitely do not want to be asking about benefits on the first interview. To me, as an HR, I don't say this to anyone, but the first thing I think of is, oh, they're going to be a high user of our benefits, and what medical issues do they have? And I'm not proud that that's the first thing I think of, but just if you are, too interested, it does send a signal. But with that said, I find it odd that I have had people accept offers without asking anything about benefits and without knowing anything, and that sends another message to me too. So there is a balance there. Don't be aggressive, like Mandy said. Don't and don't divulge. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe the people that divulge their medical issues when they're asking about health insurance, and that's the last thing you want to do.
Yep. I agree, and I mean, there's protections, what companies can't discriminate against you based on your medical information. That being said, you don't want to give someone your whole entire medical history. And you, like Lisa said, you would be blown away by the things that people tell us when they're researching benefits. And so, for sure. Charles put a comment in just about, says, regarding the past salary question or what I'm expecting, he says, I avoid giving any number. I say the whole package is important, and I believe we can come to an agreement on salary if there's a good fit with my skills and experience and the value I can add for your company. I agree with that to a point. I have had some folks that just refuse to give me any sort of a number, and oftentimes I'm working within a budget, and it's okay if it's a range. And, I will still talk to someone who's $20,000 over what I'm looking for, because then it's exactly what it is, are we willing to spend a little bit more to get someone that does have the skills and experience that are exactly matching our company? Lisa, I'd be curious your thoughts on that.
Definitely agree. I know it's frustrating because as an applicant, you want the employer to tip their hand first, and so I do ask them if there's a range, and because it is really scary to have that number. So yeah, it's, if you don't want to say a number that takes you out of the running, because that's happened before. So I tend to ask if they have a range that, and a lot of companies do have a range, and hopefully that will be somewhere in that range.
Lexi asked a great question in the chat that I have heard a lot. So she says, you mentioned that sometimes salaries are non-negotiable. Is it appropriate to ask if the salary offer is negotiable before trying to negotiate, or should an applicant just go for it and try to negotiate right off the bat?
I think that's a great question. I do like asking, because it sets up the tone of, I am considerate of you as a company and with my feelings of hey, where is this at? Because I've had people flat out turn something down and then didn't even negotiate with me at all. And so that's the hard thing, where it's well, we maybe could have negotiated, where are you at? And so I think asking that question is good. It shows respect. And and that you value the process and, you know, how things go. You know, because before you get into it, because then it opens the door to a conversation, because it's, you know, what are you looking to negotiate and why? So I think that's good. Elise or Lisa?
I agree, Mandy, and I think it, like you said, opens the door to conversation, because maybe there's some other concerns that you have, and then you can just, you know, be open and honest and talk about what your reservations might be, and then hopefully get some information that allows you to make an educated decision.
And I also agree. And like your example, Mandy, was nobody's going to take away the offer if they ask for 40 hours of PTO. They're not going to take away the offer if they offered you 55,000 and you came back for 60,000. The 55 is still on the table. They're not going to pull back the offer just because you asked for more money.
And Charles had a question too. You know, he says, you know, since counteroffers are expected, it's also that you should ask for at least 10%. I like to avoid blankets statements like that. You know, it depends on where you're at. You know, 10% of 100,000 looks a lot different than 10% of 60,000. And so I think it really depends on the position and also where they're at relative to where you need to be.
Yep.
A question that was what would be an underutilized benefit, something that people don't tend to pay attention to or think about when they're necessarily working on when they are maybe negotiating that salary or that total benefit package, total rewards.
For me, I always think about disability, because disability is such a hugely important benefit that I think unless you've had direct experience with it, you don't think about it. I know I had worked for large organizations that always provided long-term disability, and then I went to a company and they didn't. And that was really important to me. I think, you know, if something were to happen and I were to become disabled and not be able to work, you know, I have a sister-in-law who went on long-term disability at 28 years old. And so I've seen it happen before. And so that's one I think that people don't think about unless they're using it. Like maybe they're thinking about short-term because they're growing their family, that sort of a thing. That I think is good for people to pay attention to. Elise or Lisa?
You know, it's disability is a great one. Life insurance is good. For us, we have discounted flight lessons. So people can, if they're interested in becoming a pilot, you know, that's a great benefit to some people. But then, you know, most of our workforce is not interested, but to those few that are interested in becoming a pilot, that's huge. Yeah, the wellness, HSA contribution, which we talked about, 401k match. I can't think of anything. I mean, obviously health, dental, vision, and do the math and look at the plans and the out-of-pocket max and the deductibles and the HSA contribution, because those do add up.
Maternity leave is one that's going to be really important to me when I look for my next job, because I do plan on growing my family. And so that's one where, you know, it could be a financial hardship for me depending on if a company offers it or if it's even a lower benefit than I would have now. And life insurance is another one that I think about. I've just had too many weird situations working in HR where someone gets cancer right before they leave, or something happens and you're switching jobs and people think, oh, I'll just go without for a month. Too many weird things have happened. So look at, you know, if you do have a gap in employment, just taking a little bit out to cover if something would happen. And then at that new employer, really take a look at what they offer. Sometimes it's 2 times your annual salary, sometimes it's 1 time, or sometimes you can purchase, but please make sure you have something in place, whether that's through your work or outside of work.
Mm-hmm. I really like Lisa's comment about the flying lessons. You know, that's something that's very unique to them because of who they are as an employer. And I think it's really cool to see some of the stuff out there that you can get. You know, if you work at a car dealership, do you get deals on new cars? You know, things like that. Like, what are they uniquely offering because of who they are as, you know, as a company?
We have another question about, are talking about where to research salary rates and benefits for different roles, industries, and locations. What are some examples of what some of those places could be to do some of that research?
You know, people go to salary.com and it really is, oh, it can be quite a range for salary.com, and I don't know where all the data comes from, but so it's good to have your source, no matter how many sources you're using, to have more than one source. Don't just go use salary.com. I mean, if you can get your hands on salary data, but not a lot of people outside of comp and benefits have access to that information. So I'm coming up blank on any other sources. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think Glassdoor is another one. Salary.com is one. I know I've always shared, you know, HR managers in Fargo, as an example, pay from $50,000 to $120,000. You know, so it's like, what kind of a crazy range is that? You know, so like when looking at postings to even know, like, what is it? You know, and that's where, you know, looking at Glassdoor, you can use salary.com as a reference, but be aware that it is kind of all over the place. You know, and companies do, especially bigger ones, have specific salary information that they use. You know, some companies might benchmark nationally, some might just say locally, this is how we pay. I think it's good to know an HR person too. You know, I get hit up like, hey, Maddie, this is what I'm looking for. You know, what have you seen out there in the market? Elise?
Yeah, that's a good point. And to Lisa's point, if you're lucky enough to know a benefit and comp individual, they usually have access to some salary data that they'd probably be willing to share with you. And, you know, I think of too, when I'm looking at new companies and if I know someone there and I feel comfortable enough talking to someone, I will ask if they know at least the starting salary. I'm not going to ask how much you make, but what was your starting salary?
Yep. Yeah, sometimes companies will have like pay grades, for instance. And so, like, someone that you talk to might know relative to them if it pays higher or lower. You know, so they might be able to give you an idea, not necessarily right on, but a place to start. And again, their websites too, especially when it comes to benefits. Like, I'm surprised at how much benefits information I just find out there. I've always been a collector of benefit guides from different companies. That's the HR nerd inside of me that comes out sometimes. But it's amazing to see what you can even find on company sites as far as benefits. I mean, even their rates and everything.
I had a message come through asking what is the best way to negotiate. So is it in person? Is it on the phone? Is it over email? And then a follow-up to that of what do I say? How do I start that?
Well, I can take or Lisa, you take a stab first.
Well, I think phone is fine. I definitely would not do it in person because that, I don't know. I would be off put if somebody came to my office and wanted to negotiate salary in person. I think phone is completely appropriate. And honestly, I think most times you're talking to HR and they are well aware or expecting a counter. Even if you're going to accept at that position, I would still always say, think about it. You know, can I have 24 hours? And so that's the first thing is if you're given an offer, ask for 24 hours for take consideration, if you haven't asked for the benefits information, make sure you get the benefits information. And or you can even ask for 40. So no matter when then you finally do get back to them, call the HR person. And if you are, asking for more money, it's just put it out there. I put pen to paper, and I'd be going backwards and taking into the consideration with all the benefits. Would you consider, or I would like to counter offer with this. So that's my advice.
Yeah. I would echo Lisa's too. Over the phone is great. Ask for that time to think about it. And just say, if it's a Friday and you're like, hey, can I think about it over the weekend? Talk with my, whoever I have at home that is, my family with me, and get there. And I think it's important, like what Lisa said, to put that pen to paper and see what it is. Maybe the 401k match is half of what you currently have, or things like that. I think it is helpful for me as an HR person to hear those things, because then that helps me know where we are as an employer in the marketplace. I mean, if I'm consistently hearing from people that they want to, they want to counteroffer because our retirement plan isn't good, that's good information for me to know. So I know how to, what changes I need to try to make to our benefits in the future. And like Lisa said, to be straightforward, that's great advice. Just say, this is what I looked at and this is where I need to be. Be confident in it. And, here's why I looked at this, this, and this, and, this is where I need to be. Good question.
Saying people should remember that the biggest raise you'll ever get is what you ask for during negotiation. Some research suggests that men get more because we are generally, quote unquote, less agreeable. Do you find that men are more likely to negotiate assertively?
Well, I think that I've seen in general that I think women, it goes even back to applying for a job. There's stats out there that talk about that men will see that they can do, they've got experience in 5 of the 10 things listed, and they're like, yeah, I'll apply for this. Whereas traditionally what they've seen in research is that women need to see every single one of those things. Can I do that? And research says too is that women will tend to undersell themselves. I wouldn't say that that's all across the board, though. I think if someone is comfortable and confident in what it is that they own, or owning their, who they are and what their skills are. I have seen it go both ways, personally. Confidence is the biggest thing, regardless.
Another question, would you agree that you should always ask for a day or two to consider an offer? And if not given time to, I assume, consider that offer, is that a warning sign?
Someone else want to take that one, please?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I would always ask for a day.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
somebody
Lisa.
else says No, I already said that you should always ask for time. So I think they're looking for you two to say if you agree or not.
Yep, I agree on the day or two. Yeah, if not given enough time, it might be that they have an urgent need for that position. So you would just want to be open and honest that, you'd like to give it some time to talk with your family, and hopefully they're receptive to that.
Yeah, and I think like Lisa said, at a minimum 24 hours, that is not at all unreasonable. I know I've had a position before offered to me where it took us 3 months to come to this is where we're at. Yep, it's all created. This is the job we're going to offer you. And then they wanted to know, like, by the end of that day. I'm like, no, sorry. I wanted to talk to my boss in person, and I wanted to talk to my husband. And, I'm like, how about Monday? And it was Thursday, and they said, okay. But I think it's, keeping in mind, like Elise said, is it an urgent thing? They'll still give you 24 hours. And if they don't, I don't know. I wouldn't like that very much.
I don't see any other questions in there right now. If you have them, keep adding them. We have a couple more minutes. One of them that I have is, what is one thing that can help, kind of thinking a little bit outside of salary negotiations and benefits, but what is one thing that someone could have on their resume or their cover letter that would help them stand out or would make you spend a little bit more time reviewing their documents?
I like when people have done their research on the company. It shows that they're really taking their time to make sure that this is the right fit for them. So I'll use Mandy as an example. She wrote an awesome letter when she applied to CoreLink about how passionate she was about our culture and what she could help us with. And that was a really big selling point for her. Thanks. Kudos to you.
Nice job, Mandy.
I hate cover letters too, so.
They're the worst.
Lisa, how about
I
you?
would just add, you hear the saying of don't have errors on your resume, and it's apparent that people who don't have other people look at their resume or their cover letter, and grammatical errors or inconsistency on if you're listing employment and you are don't list them in order, or it's just. And HR people are more than happy to look at resumes. We do it all day long, and so there's so many resumes where I've gotten, and they've used a template, and they clearly haven't changed the default what came in the template. I would suggest to always use a PDF. Save it as a PDF. Don't send it in Word format, and don't worry about it if it goes on 2 pages or 3 pages. That old 1-page resume, that's old news.
I think too, to make sure you have a professional email address. You don't want to get attention for the wrong reason. I've seen some doozies, and that's not why you want to get attention.
No.
Oh, Lisa, you cut out.
We have mechanics and
She's in a low spot again.
No. While we wait for her to come back, we have another question. When providing references, are 3 to 4 an appropriate amount?
I would say with references, don't provide them unless they ask for them. And then usually they'll tell you how many that they want. And so I think companies more and more, are moving maybe away from references, in my opinion, just because you're not going to give someone who's going to say something negative about you. You're going to give like your best friends from people you used to work with before, or your favorite boss ever. But yeah, don't provide them unless they ask for them. And if they do ask for them, make sure to call your references and give them a heads up. Generally it's 3 or 4, so kind of know who those people are in your life that you would give as a reference. And so you're prepared if they do ask.
A follow-up to that, if asked for them, how many should be personal and how many should be professional?
they should all be professional.
Yeah. That's where I'm at too. Unless if they ask you for a personal reference, which some companies do still, all professional. And sometimes maybe if you're young or a student, it can get a little hard, but you can, professors, people who maybe you worked with for an organization you volunteered for, be kind of creative and think about people who have really seen the skills that the company is looking for and seeing you have those skills in action.
Another question, why would we do a PDF and not a Word document? Assuming for your resume.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I
You're cutting out again, Lisa. I think for a PDF, when you open up a Word document, people can edit it. They can, sometimes it might not open quite right. Versus a PDF, it's for lack of this is my non-technical words here. It's locked in. This is what it is. It doesn't open something that someone could edit or change. Your formatting will stay good. It looks cleaner. Lisa probably had something way more eloquent to say, but in a down zone there. But
as we head into our last about 90 seconds of our time together, any last pieces of advice or tactical components that you just want to share, whether it's about salary negotiations, benefits, or just kind of this whole job search process as we move into this time?
Don't be afraid to ask for help, whether that's one of us, an HR person, or whoever you feel comfortable with. You're not in it alone.
Yeah, that's solid advice. You ask a friend, ask an HR person, and patience. I don't know. Don't settle. Don't settle. Make sure you find the thing that's right for you. And I've seen so often that people will take a position and kind of rush into something, and then a month later, the most perfect thing for that person opens up. And so make sure that you find the right thing for you.
I'm not sure Lisa is still there, but I want to thank everybody for joining us. And next week, same time, same place, we are going to have interviewing tips and tricks. We're excited to see kind of where that goes and how we can continue to kind of round out this 4-part series. And yeah, so just thank you for everyone for joining us, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And thank you to our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Thanks, everybody. Bye.